You're listening to the Heart Lessons podcast with me, Sarah Ricky. Real women, real stories, real faith. Hi, friend, and thank you for joining me today on the Heart Lessons podcast. I think God frequently whispers to us in a still small voice the truths we will need to lead us on the road He has for us. I found it to be true in my life, and I'm sure you found it to be true in yours as well. These are our heart lessons. And so here on the Heart Lessons podcast, I want to find wonderful people who love the Lord and walk closely with Him and are willing to share their heart lessons with others to allow us to draw closer to Him. And joining me today on the Heart Lessons podcast is my friend Lauren Casper. She is an amazing mom, wife, and writer. But to me personally, she is an amazing friend. In the few years Lauren and I lived near each other, we both walked through some really hard things. Life-changing diagnoses, losses, and other big life transitions. And while we never would have wished to know pain like we did, we were really glad to have each other. I love Lauren so much, and her friendship means the world to me, truly. I know you'll love her too, and be challenged by her to be an even better friend. So here's my conversation with Lauren. Okay. All right, Lauren. I'm so glad we finally got this Skype thing figured out.
Me too.
I had to create a new account and all this stuff, so thank you for being patient with me.
Oh gosh.
Of course it would happen when you're supposed to be recording with somebody, so that's just awesome.
That's the way things go.
So, okay, well, would you mind starting by telling us about yourself and who you are and what you do, and who is Lauren Casper?
Well, that's who I am. Lauren Casper.
That's your name.
I don't know why I always find that such a hard question. Like, introduce yourself, and that's like my answer. I'm Lauren Casper. No.
There's nothing else to me, just my name. Thank you, guys.
That's it. Thank you. All you need to know. I had been married it'll be 11 years this summer, soon. And we have 2 kids. From Ethiopia, adopted in 2011 and 2012. So they're 4 and 5, which makes us sound slightly crazy, but and busy. And that's always my answer. Like, I have a husband and 2 kids.
Are you allowed to talk about your writing project?
Oh, yeah.
It's more than a project.
Sure. Yeah. I've been blogging for, I don't really know how many years now, actually. Maybe 6 years, maybe more. So I have my blog, and I write there, and sometimes I get the opportunity to write other places. And I have my first, I have a little ebook. I don't really consider that like my first book. It's like a little how-to manual, like a 50-page manual that I self-published on Amazon about fundraising for adoptions. But, so I have that. But my first actual, what I think of as a real book, is coming out next year. And I don't have like specifics on exact dates and all that, but spring of 2017. I'm publishing my first book, so I actually just turned it in. What's it been now? It's the end of May, so like a month ago I turned it into my publisher, which is Thomas Nelson. So that's really exciting. So now we're in like the next phase of that process, and the whole thing's just been crazy and fun and eye-opening and just really bizarre and awesome all at the same time. So I'm excited about that. And then in the meantime, I'll be working on my second book, because I'll be publishing 2 with Thomas Nelson. So that's
crazy.
The writing side. Yeah.
What did it feel like to turn in that manuscript? Did it feel like a relief and scary and all the things?
It was like that, exactly. Relief and scary. It was like such a relief, because I had really loved it. Like, I don't know if you read authors' blogs. Sometimes they'll talk about, or podcasts, listen to their podcasts, and they'll talk about the writing process or writing a book, and some of them sound like super romantic about it. It's like really flowery, and like it was just this like existential experience and all of that. And then others are like, I read a post recently where it was like, I hated writing the book. She loved it, but she hated it. She's like, it was awful. And sometimes Jen Hatmaker writes really funny, like, Instagram posts about, like, this is killing me. Whoever thought, like, I should write anything? I'm the worst writer in the world. And, like, all these little things about how awful the experience is. So it's like a love-hate relationship. I didn't really have that. I really enjoyed writing it, like, the whole way through. I think my stress came from more like meeting a deadline, and because it just seemed like a lot to do in just a few months, like a whole book in just a few months seemed like, oh, how does one do that? And then occasionally I would have this like self-doubt, mostly at the beginning. Once I got into it and got some chapters under my belt, I was like, oh, I can do this. But at the beginning, like chapter 1, like the blank screen, just cursor, like,
yeah.
And I've got nothing. And I'm in trouble because I've signed contracts. And what's going to happen? But like other than just those two little like things of worrying about deadline and then, at the beginning, can I actually do this? I really liked it. It wasn't like this big romantic experience. It was just like, work I enjoy, I guess would be a good way of putting it. Yeah. Like it's a job, but I love it, and it was fun, and I learned a lot through it. And so turning in the manuscript felt like a big relief because I had done it and met the deadline.
Yay!
Woo! But then it was also really scary because you pour your heart and soul out, and you're like, what if I get a letter back in a month that's like, this is the worst.
Change everything.
Yeah. It's the worst thing anyone here has ever read. And yeah. So, that won't happen. No one will do that meme, even if they think it. But yeah. So that's how it felt turning me in. Like, a big relief, but also, like, really scary.
So it's like the beginning of another pretty major process in the book writing.
With the editing process, and then we'll go on to who knows what after that. I've kind of taken it one bite at a time.
Yeah,
like I don't ever know what comes next. My editor just emails me and is like, "It's time to start working on this." Oh, okay, sure.
You just pretend it doesn't exist until you get those emails.
Sure, I'm working on step 1. I have no idea what step 6 is. Someone will tell me when we get there.
Okay, one step at a time. That's good. That's probably some good advice, though.
Yeah. Yeah, well, can only take things in bite-sized pieces. So.
Well, what I wanted to chat with you about tonight is that what maybe a lot of people don't know about us is that we've been friends for quite some time.
Wow.
And in our, I don't know, when did John, was it 2008 that you guys moved?
2009. So
2009.
Yeah, 7 years ago. Yeah.
So in the past 7 years, we've both gone through some stuff. And I feel like the Lord...
Nice.
Yeah, some stuff. I feel like the Lord just brought us together, and I don't know, I feel like you helped me through a lot. I think the feeling might be mutual, but...
It's totally
I'm going to gush about you, and you can just nod and be like...
Yeah, you are all right.
yeah, right. Thank you. No, but
yeah, you're welcome. My friendship.
I just I don't know. I just feel like in my life you were truly heaven sent, and I would like to, just walk through all the stuff that you walked through with me and that we walked through together. So I guess, you said it was 2009. I guess I didn't remember if it was 08 or 09, but I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but I was the only woman in my circle of friends who was working and had no children.
Yeah.
And I was feeling lonely, and I had fought it for a while, but I had reached a point where I felt like I really did feel content, and I was okay with it. And, but I did feel lonely. And so I prayed, I was praying if that Lord would just bring me a friend. And, so when we found out that our church was hiring a new youth pastor, even before I knew your names or anything about you guys, I was like, oh, no, I said, does he have a wife? And it was my mother-in-law. She's like, yeah, yeah, I think he's married. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, she's going to be my friend. I just know it. This is her. Like, you had no choice, Lauren. You had no choice.
I was claimed from the
You were
start.
claimed.
I love it.
So I don't know. And then I think the first time we actually met was at a Tides game, like a youth group Tides game.
Yes, I was just going to say that. We met at the Tides game. We talked about scrapbooking.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I think we were sitting by each other, and I'm like, how do I tell her she's going to be my best friend, without, like, making her feel weird?
I love it. Well, you know, it was that we were in the same sort of phase in life because I was working and no kids.
Yeah.
You were working and no kids. And like you said, like, in our age group range at that church, there was no one else like us.
Yeah.
Like, everybody else was either single or, but even then, like, in our age range, there really weren't a lot of single women there actually either. And so it was mostly just young moms. And and while that, you could still obviously, and you were friends with the young moms.
Right.
You can't be friends. It's just a different type of season of life, and so it's easy to feel lonely or a little bit just not part of the group, like truly part of the group. And that's how I kind of always felt, even before we moved down. And I think I've even said it before, maybe in a post or something, that I always just felt a little bit not part of the club. Like, it's just hard, even if you have just the most wonderful friends who are moms. It's still just such a difference. And so I think it was so perfect for both of us because you had been feeling lonely, and then for me, as you well know, when we came into the church, it was sort of a rough transition, and there was there was just sort of some upheaval in the church with that and in these various groups. And so it was really a lonely time for me because I went through several months feeling like nobody liked me at all, and no one wanted us there. Which wasn't true, but that's just how it felt. Except for you. And so it was like sort of meant to be, because I was like, she has to be my friend because she's the only one willing to be with me.
No.
So it was the stars aligned for our friendship.
It was perfect.
It was, yeah.
And we spent, and like our husbands got along too, which was good.
Yeah, perfect.
That was pretty good. And then we like redecorated the youth room together. We painted. Remember that weekend? That was super fun.
That was so
We got
fun.
like Chinese food and pizza. We ate all the bad things to endure it.
That you shouldn't really eat, but we did. Because we're, like 25?
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
We did.
So that was, we would get together occasionally and have movie nights, girl nights, popcorn, and coffee. And then I think it was in like fall of 2009, and you were over at my house, and I think we watched a movie together. But you were like, I have something to tell you. I think John and I have decided to adopt. And like, it was like at the same time, I was completely thrilled for you because I knew how much you wanted to be a mom, and I was also like, oh no. Oh no, she's gonna have a baby. But I was genuinely excited for you. But I remember thinking like, oh, like we're on kind of a timer now. That's how I felt. But
yeah.
Anyway.
And I remember feeling really concerned about telling you and your feelings, because I knew from our previous years of infertility, which is different. You guys weren't going through that, but it was like I knew you wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
But just the timing and life circumstances hadn't made their way for that to happen for you guys yet. And so you plan to eventually have children, but at that time it was like, well, it's just not right for right now, but you really wanted to be a mom. And so in that sense, I could relate to it with our infertility stuff, because it was like, I remember how it felt wanting to be a mom and getting friends' pregnancy announcements. Mm-hmm. And while it was different, it felt a little bit like that to me, like telling you that we were going to start the adoption process felt like you would be a little bit in the place that I had been before. And so I remember feeling kind of nervous and like, oh, how would I want to be told? And I just don't know. There's no good way to break this news. Even though it was like good news,
Yeah.
I felt that too. Like, oh, I hope this isn't going to be too hard for her to hear. And, but you didn't show it. That way.
Well, I really was like 100% excited.
So
I really was.
Yeah, you were so happy. And so I was like, wow, that went really well. I remember feeling so relieved by that.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
So, and then I think, was that the first winter retreat we went on together, maybe that
Yes.
January after? And that was like a great bonding time for us. I feel like I don't know.
So
We probably like didn't do our job as like shepherding the girls.
We were just shepherd anyone. We were like, it's a weekend away for us. It's our friend weekend.
Oh, that's fun. But that was really great.
Yeah.
And then little did we know that weekend when we came home, what we had been waiting for to have kids was for Josh to be able to start his master's program and finish it. And then that very same weekend of that winter retreat, when we got home, we got the letter saying the program had been canceled. Like the one he had applied to. I mean, like we either assumed it was going to be a yes or a no, and it was like canceled.
It doesn't even exist.
Yeah, like right. And we're like, what? Does that happen?
Yeah. How can you just cancel a degree?
I know. How? But it happened. So we basically decided within that week that we felt like the Lord was telling us to start our family. And so then, and I know I told you, and then it felt like so awesome. We had started our motherhood journey kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it was so fun because you got pregnant pretty quick. So
Yeah.
it really was like on the same.
It was like March maybe or April. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And that was right around the time we had just finished all our paperwork. So we were just going on the wait list. And you guys were newly pregnant. And, yeah. And then I don't remember when you found out that it was going to be a boy. I don't remember the time.
It was like the beginning of August. It was right after Josh's brother got married. So it was like the very beginning of August.
Okay, that's right. Because I remember really, because we already knew we were adopting a boy. So I remember
Okay, yeah.
like,
Like they need to be buddies.
But then being like, you know what? But if it's a girl, we'll just arrange their marriage.
I remember.
Either way, it'll work out.
Funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
So
So you were due in December,
Mhm.
and we were matched with Moranto in October.
Yeah.
And it all that was crazy because it all happened. Like, we were matched with Moranto. You had Micah in December. We traveled for our first trip to Ethiopia in January, and then we brought Moranto home. Well, okay, but we should say he was born in September. Moranto
Right,
was.
okay.
So he is older than Micah.
Yeah.
No, you came home after Micah was born. He is, what is that? I'm bad at math.
3 months.
He's 3 months older than Micah. 2 feet taller than 3 months.
Yeah, right. That's funny. Yeah, so we both had our newborns or infants at the same time.
Boys.
And I was trying to think of what our friendship was like when we were brand new moms. I don't even know if it really existed. I think we were just surviving.
Yeah, I think it was normal that you were dealing with your house and I was dealing with my house. But I think the beauty of that for me with our friendship has always been that neither one of us thought anything of that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ever remember having any hurt feelings that we didn't talk as much or get together as much during that time. There was no conflict. It was just, we both are having to figure this out in our own homes for a little while. Because once we got to that summer, when the boys were a little bit older, we started getting together again. Like, they were like 6, 7, 8 months old, and we felt like we could breathe again.
Yeah. We could make public appearances. We were dressed, you know.
Full sentences.
Faces washed.
But yeah, I don't ever, and I think looking back, I do remember feeling sort of relief, just knowing our friendship was fine, and not ever feeling like you were unhappy with me. I just never felt pressure. Like, I just felt like Sarah gets it. She's got her stuff. I've got my stuff right now. We're figuring it out. And it was just very easy. I guess that I feel like that's a good way to describe how, for me, our friendship has felt relationship-wise, just very easy and natural.
Yeah, and we could pick up, like, anytime and just be like, not be like, how come you haven't texted me? Yeah. Was texting even a thing when the boys were?
I don't think we texted ever, which makes us sound really old, but we're not.
It was back when you had to, like, do the 3. Yeah, right.
We just didn't have text because we were not hip.
Yeah, gosh, I don't even remember. Well, anyway, that's crazy.
That's so funny.
When did you... I know that our Sam's adoption was a surprise adoption, which is so funny, but I don't even remember what... it was 2012, but I don't remember when you got your referral or when that started.
Yeah, so Marato turned 1 at the end of September, and that's pretty much when we started. We knew we were going to start the adoption process again. We were like, that was like a little bit weird. I think it was December before we actually like announced it and said what we were going to do. But we were like spending that fall kind of figuring out which agency we were going to sign with, what country, all that stuff. And I know you knew about all of that. We just hadn't like really publicly told people. So in December, the boys were a little, well, Micah had just turned 1.
Yeah.
We signed on to do this pilot program in Ghana, but with the expectation it was going to take like at least 2 years to even maybe get matched. And so we were sort of just like, well, we'll just hang tight, we'll fundraise in our spare time, and it'll be fine and not a big deal. And then that spring or late winter is when... So we were just kind of hanging out there expecting it to be a couple more years before we had a baby home or anything. And that's when you announced you were pregnant again.
Yeah.
So then you were pregnant. I was really excited, but I do remember thinking, but our kids aren't going to be like the same age like the boys because ours aren't going to come home for like 2-3 more years or, you know.
Yeah, or so you thought.
Or so I thought. Yeah. So then that summer... early June is when my friend posted about Arsema that basically the short version for people not familiar with adoption is that she had some special needs that weren't compatible with any families waiting for a child with her agency. So she was just in the orphanage, but no parents coming for her because she didn't match anybody's parameters that were home study ready and all of that. She totally matched all of our parameters in our home study, except that we were adopting from Ghana and she was in Ethiopia. But really that was so easy because once we called and found out and got all our information, it was just really clear that she was supposed to be our daughter. It was a 1 week. I spent 1 week just fixing the paperwork, like changing things over to Ethiopia, because we had so much of the groundwork done that it wasn't that hard. And then sent everything in. And then we knew, like, oh my gosh, we're going to have a new baby home, like, right now, basically, not in 2 years. So you were getting close to 20 weeks in your pregnancy when we found out that we would be traveling for court at the end of July.
Okay.
And John was away at something with the youth group, whatever they did. I think they went on summer camp to Alpine maybe that summer. And I knew that we had just gotten our court dates, and so I was trying to, like, getting some stuff at the house ready. And that was when he was gone and doing that, and we were getting ready to go to Ethiopia, and you had your 20-week ultrasound, because I remember going, okay, so the girls are going to be close in age, or the kids, now I just spoiled the surprise, the kids are going to be close in age, because our Sama was born in May, so she was only a month old, or almost 2 months old at that time, and I knew you were due in November, so I was like, it'll be just like Micah and Marato.
Yeah.
They'll be just a few months apart in age. So I remember really thinking, I really hope Sarah has a girl, because the boys are such good friends, and that would be too perfect to have a girl. So when you knew, you had told me when your ultrasound was, so I was like waiting for the gender reveal, like, please be a girl, but act really happy if it's a boy. Be okay with anything. So I'll let you tell.
Yeah.
That part. Yeah.
Yeah. So at that 20-week ultrasound, we just got some really unexpected and unwanted news that, well, I mean, exciting news that it was a girl, but
right.
Sad because she wasn't going to be able to live. And so that was just like, I don't even know, like people say, like earth-shattering, heartbreaking, like I don't even know, like I don't even know how to describe it. And I know you've had moments like that as well, like you're just
it's shock.
It's like nothing,
it's not supposed to happen.
No.
Yeah.
And like nothing existed except like that news almost,
right.
In my brain. So that was just crazy.
Well, John was out of town, and I was redoing the master bathroom, like as a surprise for when he got home. When I got your text that it was a girl, which was so exciting to me. I was like, yes! But in the same text, you told me right away, and I don't remember the exact wording, but you said that there were some complications in that early ultrasound, but so you were being referred to a specialist for ultrasound later that same day, in that afternoon. And you put enough detail in that first text about why you were being referred and what they were concerned about, that I knew it wasn't okay. I mean, I remember just having this enormous dread, like, this is not good. And you put on Facebook just a little update that it was a girl and a prayer request that you were going in later that day. And the comments started rolling in. And I remember calling John because I was so upset by all the comments. And he was like, just get off Facebook and don't look at them all, because they were from wonderful people who love you so much and want the best things for you. But it was a lot of, it's going to be totally fine.
Yeah.
Someone, said something like, oh yeah, they told me that, but then it was totally fine. Don't worry, everything's fine, blah, blah, blah. They say stuff like that. But, and it was a lot of everything's going to be fine. And I remember that really upsetting me, because I knew that sometimes everything is not fine, and that no one that was making any of those comments knew that everything was going to be fine.
Yeah.
So it was hard for me, because I remember thinking, I really hope, and I was praying all day, that it was just a weird blip or whatever, that they were just wrong and that everything was okay. But I also knew that reality is sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful to hear everything's going to be fine when maybe it's not going to be fine. You know what I mean? So that was sort of my end of things that day, that beginning and mid through that day, because I just had this really heavy sense of dread and like just knowing it wasn't okay. Based on, there was enough in that first text and what you had said that I knew this was a bigger deal than just looking into things a little further, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, later that, I guess we probably knew by dinner time that day that things were, bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we texted very much later that evening, but I remember the next day, you texted me to check up on me, and I had been crying, obviously, and I said something like, I've switched from tissues to using baby washcloths because tissues just aren't enough. And you texted back haha, after you lost your babies and then you were, going through your infertility treatments and all of that, you said you would use kitchen towels.
Dish towels.
And your dish towels, yeah. And so I felt like, here we are both, you're grieving for me and I'm grieving for myself, but we had this laugh. And I always look back and then think, like, I'm just thankful for that little moment.
Yes, that you got to chuckle at us and our towels.
Yeah, our towels. Like, tissues will not do. They're way too thin. Like,
and you just go through them so fast. It's just like, what is this? What are we doing? Give me a dish towel.
So we switched to the cloth things.
That's so funny.
So that was the summer of 2012, and I think around that time is when some red flags were being raised about Morato. Is that true?
Yes.
It was the summer,
That's right. Really, that started in the spring, but the thing was that we really thought that it was something, like we thought, we were seeing all these things, and I thought, he's got a bug, like a virus, or honestly, I thought maybe he has a parasite that we didn't catch when he got home from Ethiopia, and there's going to be some really random thing, but maybe some bacteria in his tummy, or a diet thing, maybe he's allergic to dairy or gluten, who knows. What I was thinking, it was something that we were going to catch, some doctor was going to eventually catch, because we had been in and out of, like, the infectious disease guy, different pediatricians, and then we went to the ER once because some of the symptoms just got really bad one morning, and it was that ER visit that kind of turned the tide, because I didn't know it at the time because the doctor didn't say it, but she saw something that made her go, maybe you should go see this pediatrician, who we went to, and then referred us on to, he referred us to two things. What was a gastro pediatrician, because we had been on a wait list forever, and he was trying to get us in quicker, a gastrointestinal doctor. But speech therapy was the one that he was like, but you could get in there, like, quick. And it was quick. So we were matched with our SAMA in early June is when we accepted her referral. We flew out to Ethiopia to go to court for the end of July. The day before our flight left is when he had that speech evaluation. And there were 3 therapists in that, and that was the day that the first time anyone said they thought he might have autism was that day. They referred us to another doctor for that evaluation, because that's a whole other thing, and said, he has several red flags for this, which was shocking, because that wasn't on my radar whatsoever. I mean, because it wasn't my life experience. I didn't have friends that had children with autism or family members. It just wasn't, which now seems so crazy because it's so prevalent. But I'm like, how did I just not know anyone? Or it just wasn't in my environment, and so it was a really big shock. And to try to digest that and then get on a plane the next day for such an enormous life event was kind of like, what do we do with all this right now?
Did you even feel like, you didn't have sufficient time to process. Like, what did that feel like?
No, what we did was, so we got in the car with Morato after that evaluation, and we were both just, like, sitting in the parking lot in silence in the car, like, okay. And then we got home and just decided we can't do both. We can't process this and really dive into this, and also go have a meaningful, special week in Ethiopia with our daughter, because we knew we only had, it was 5 days is what we had before we'd have to leave her there until we could go back and get her.
Which is crazy, by the way.
Which is also crazy.
If I'm ever in charge of adoption, I'm fixing that.
Yeah.
Just to let you know. Fixing that part.
Yes. So we decided, okay, we can't do this right now. We're going to have to just put this in a box on the shelf until we get home from Ethiopia, which is funny because that's a really hard thing to do. But somehow we were able to do it. And I think it's because we were just so excited to go meet our Sama that it was like really easy to just pour all of our thought and excitement into just that. So we went to Ethiopia, had the week with her, came home, and then that's when we kind of went, okay, let's dive into this. And we had the appointment we were trying to get with this doctor that would evaluate him for autism. But in the meantime, we went to like Barnes & Noble and get all the books about it. And so by the time we actually had our evaluation with that doctor, I was pretty sure he would say that Moronto had autism because I had done so much research and gone, oh yeah, he's like fitting every check mark here. Had I known more about it, I probably would have suspected it myself months earlier. I just wasn't educated at all about autism, and so I didn't see it. So so we had that evaluation September 5th. So just a few weeks before he turned 2. And when the doctor told us at the end of that appointment that yes, Moronto has autism, it was such a bizarre, it was a big relief, because I think John and I felt like, we both said it felt like someone was telling us essentially, you're not bad parents. This isn't anything. It was like, it's not that we've screwed up. It was also a relief that it wasn't something health-wise really serious, like that we just couldn't find. But then on the other hand, like, and immediately there was like this sense of relief, and then the other shoe falls, and I was just terrified, like, because I knew enough leading up to that appointment through all my reading and all of research to know he probably did have autism. And so it wouldn't be a surprise if they came back and said that. But I didn't know enough to know, and no one can at that point, that it would be okay. Because every child is so different that you just don't know what your road is going to look like. So I now, you know, how it's been almost 4 years since then, I look back and go, gosh, I wish I could tell myself it's going to be okay. Like, there will certainly be extremely difficult days and seasons and moments, but there's going to be so many wonderful gifts that come with this. At the time, I was just so afraid, and honestly just afraid that I wasn't going to be able to be a good enough mom to a child with special needs, knowing we had another child with special needs coming home. A month later. I mean, our Sammy came home October 1st is when we came home. We landed on America with her, so it was like boom, 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 and I just remember being really afraid and overwhelmed, just really overwhelmed with, okay, now what do we do?
Plus, maybe, I don't know, if I were in your shoes, I might be thinking, like, it's not, autism isn't like an illness that you're going to take antibiotics for and then it's going to be okay, or some sort of treatment plan. This is like completely altering, excuse me, your life and the trajectory of Moronto's life, and now what?
Yes, and that's exactly what it was. It was like, okay, this is a forever thing, and I have, all my ideas of what the future for him and for us and for our family might look like, and all these little expectations that parents just naturally have about their kids growing up and doing certain things was suddenly different, and I didn't, and still we don't know. There's just a lot of unknown. But the funny thing about that is that that's actually true for everybody.
It's true.
It's actually true for all parents. You have no idea what Micah or Jossie are gonna, you know. You don't know if they're gonna graduate high school or go to college or get married or have kids. You have no idea. But suddenly there's just an extra curveball thrown in with autism, and I think that becomes real earlier for parents of children with autism. That, oh, you really don't know. I don't know if still don't know if he'll need to live with us forever or live, you know, near us or in some sort of, you know, group living, you know, maybe independent, but sort of kind of, or maybe he's going to go to college and it just, you can't tell at such a young age, first of all, and but like I said, that's true for all parents, but it's just brought very real. You can't really pretend that you have their future all figured out anymore.
Yeah.
Where, I intend to do that even with our Sema. Like, well, she's going to do this and she's going to do that. It's like, well, no, I have no idea. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. But that becomes real earlier with autism. And even though the future with all kids you don't really know, there is a truth to, with autism, day-to-day life does look different.
Yeah.
And that just will be a fact than it does with typically developing children or neurotypical children. It's the term a lot of people use. So there are differences for our family day to day, and I knew that would be true. I just didn't know what that would look like. So I just knew it's going to be different than what I thought, and probably harder than what I thought, and I have no idea how we're going to do this or what it's going to look like. And that was very scary to me, I think, in a large part because I knew we had another baby coming.
Yeah.
And I think
a whole nother unknown.
Right. And so I think if it was just at that point just Morato and no plans for more children, I could have kind of, hunkered down a little bit and gone, okay, I'm just going to dig in here and we're going to figure it out. But we had a whole other person entering our family, and that felt very overwhelming, and just like, oh no, what have we done? At the time. And now I can be so thankful that, look back and I'm so thankful that we had been matched, we had accepted our Sama's referral, and we had a court date. We had passed court. She was legally ours when he was diagnosed with autism. We were just waiting for the visa clearance to go get her, because if we hadn't already been in the adoption process, or if we hadn't been matched with a child when all of that happened with Morato, I don't know that we would have
followed
gone
through.
forward.
Yeah.
We would have been like, okay, we'll back out because we aren't committed to any child, I think we would have just been like, we just need to focus on Morato and his needs and figuring out our family, and then we wouldn't have our Sema. And she has been one of the best things, not only for us as parents, but for him and for just our family in general. I can't imagine how his life would be, or our life as a family, without her. And so, but I wouldn't have chosen it because I would have felt like it was too much, or I wasn't enough, which I think a lot of people feel with their second baby anyway.
Yeah.
Like, oh, a whole other person. What have we done?
Yeah. You can't imagine your heart expanding like it does, but you don't know what that is.
Yes,
before they come.
That happens, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I know, you were going through some intense stuff, going through it with Morato's diagnosis and then trying to bring our Sama home at the same time that I was anticipating Evie's death. But you were still such a good friend to me, and you still never forgot, to text me. You texted me all the time and messaged me all the time, and you were definitely supporting me. I don't know if I supported you as much. I don't remember.
Well, I think we got together a lot. I remember coming over to your house and sitting on your couch a lot, or going out for coffee, and always sitting together on the Tuesday. It's my Bible study now is Tuesday morning.
It's Friday. Yeah,
Friday. Yeah, I'm all mixed up. I remember always sitting at the back table on Friday mornings at Bible study, women's Bible study, because we knew we would probably cry through the whole thing. So we always had the tissue box at our little table in the back corner. We'll just sit back here and cry. If anyone feels like they need to cry today, you can join us at this table.
Right. This is the watershed table. Bring your umbrella.
That's right. And I felt like you listened and you cared, and you didn't. I felt like our friendship was, I couldn't understand fully what you were going through because I haven't done that. And you couldn't fully understand what we were going through, what I was going through, because you weren't there, but we could both understand pain and
Yes.
hurting and being overwhelmed and going through a really hard season. And so we could just be friends in that and support each other in that way. And I think that's one of the things that our friendship has taught me so well, is that you don't have to understand exactly what someone's going through to be their friend in hard times. And you don't have to have the answers or the right words to be a really good friend in hard things. Because I, a lot of times, remember thinking, I have no idea what to say to Sarah right now, because there's nothing I can say to make this better.
Yeah.
There's nothing anyone can say or do to make this better. And learning and recognizing with you that was okay. Like, just sitting next to you and crying or drinking coffee was enough.
Yeah.
For friendship, I didn't have to fix it or tell you why it was all going to be all right, or even tell you that God was still good, because you knew God was still good.
Yeah.
You just needed somebody to sit with you. And the same for me. Like, I knew God was good and had a plan and has a plan for Marato's life and our life. I just needed a friend to be okay with me being scared or sad about things, you know? And I think that was just such a neat thing for both of us to be in those different but similar places at the same time. Of things are a little messy and uncertain and hard, and so we'll just sit here in this for a little while.
Right. And I feel like in a way, we were both grieving. Like, obviously I was grieving that Evie was going to die, but you were like grieving what you thought Marato was. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of had to, it was like we thought he was this certain way, and now it's different, and he's still same and with you, but it was like you kind of had to grieve. You still lost something. You still lost the idea of what what his life is going to be like. So I feel like we kind of connected on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
We both had sort of a mutual loss. I don't know. Is that an inappropriate way to say that?
No. That makes perfect sense. Yes, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. So
And
that
then,
was, tough.
Yes, like tough. I don't know if you remember that Bible study we were doing was Missing Pieces by Jennifer Rothschild.
Yes.
And that very first DVD, because it was like a DVD, Bible study, whatever.
Yeah.
The very first one, she talked about autism and stillbirth. We're like, and not that Evie was stillborn, but it was, relatable
We're
enough.
like, what is happening?
Yeah, we looked at each other like, did she have to go? It was pre-recorded. She had no clue, but we were both sitting there at the same table, like bawling our eyes out, like, how did she know?
I don't know if I can come to this anymore.
So crazy.
I know, I do remember that. I was like, what?
Yeah. It just hit way too close to home. It was a great study, but it was that first one was like, whew.
Yeah, we were a little raw to be
Yeah, raw. There we go.
study.
That's a great word. That's a great word. So anyway, I think that Bible study and all that, everything is going on. Everything happened in the fall. Macho turned 2, our Sam came home, and Evie came and passed away, and you were there, which I'm so thankful for. And you wrote me like the sweetest, just this letter. And if anybody's ever written me a card or even email, I've saved it just because I just love words so much. But yours, it was handwritten, and I just especially remember like you talking about feeling like the moments that we had with Evie were holy moments, and waiting for, like you said, heaven was waiting with bated breath to usher in its new member. I think those were your exact words that you wrote, and I just that meant so much to me. Like that's what it felt like. Like I don't even know. Like it was sad. It was overwhelmingly sad, but at the same time, it did feel holy and like hushed and sacred. I don't even know, and I'm just so thankful that you experienced that with me, and you gave me that perspective that maybe I wouldn't have observed otherwise.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it definitely felt that way. I just remember feeling like, because I think I got home from the hospital because she was, born
At like 11 p.m., yeah.
But she lived for four and a half hours, right?
It was like just under 4. Mm-hmm.
Okay, just under 4. So So it was like the wee hours of the morning.
Right, yes.
When she passed away. So I got home from the hospital at like 5 a.m., I want to say. And so I went to sleep for a little bit. I think I didn't immediately go to bed for just a couple hours. But then I got up in the morning, and I think John had taken the kids somewhere because I was alone in the kitchen at that kitchen table that looked out off Indian River Road. And I remember seeing like all the cars going by to work, and it just felt so bizarre. Like I just have this snapshot in my mind of me sitting at that table with my coffee looking out the window, because I was like, because that whole mood, like you just said, of things feeling very hushed and so special, it just really felt like the world sort of stopped being there. Like it felt like life stopped for us and for you guys to be with Evie and to have that time. And so to go back home and see all these people just going about their life was so weird. I was like, don't they know what just happened? Like, that's how it felt to me. Like, don't they know this enormous... Of course they didn't.
Right.
They're all strangers, but going to work. But to me, it just felt so weird. Like, how could the whole world have not stopped last night? Because that's how it felt. Like, it was just... And it was just so, from my perspective, which is very different than yours and that experience in that room at the hospital, it was just so sad and beautiful and heartbreaking, but so meaningful. And it was just, like a life, you ask anybody that was there, it was a life-changing experience for everybody. And to have just a different perspective on faith and on what it means to trust God and to be heartbroken, really. But I felt like it looks different than you think it looks. You know? Like heartbreak looks different sometimes than you think it's going to look. Like there actually can be really beautiful things that are really, really, really heartbreaking. Yeah. You know?
Like sorrow intermingled with peace and joy. It exists.
Yes.
Which sounds crazy.
It doesn't seem like it ought to, but it does. And I think that was really painted perfectly in those hours that night, because it was just so beautiful and but so weird to re-enter life like after. Like it was like, okay, well, how does one do this now? Like, which I know was obviously a much greater battle and struggle for you than for anybody else. Like how to do life after that.
Yeah. It was a little crazy. It was an adjustment. We'll say that.
A life adjustment.
But I feel like that's what, I don't know, the fact that you as a friend entered into that with me, that is just invaluable. I mean, not a lot of people, I don't know. I think that's just invaluable to recognize, to be willing to enter into someone's grief and enter into like those just vulnerable and raw moments with somebody. I just appreciate that. You did that for me. So thank you.
That way, for me, it felt like a huge honor. Like, she's letting me be a part of this was like such a big honor, because I wanted to be there for you, but I also wanted to be so sensitive. Like, if you don't want me there, I totally want to respect everything you're going through, but that you were letting me and wanting me to be a part of it was just a really big honor to me. Like, it meant a lot. So, Can we talk about the fact that you ran a half marathon after that, though? Because I don't want to bring that up.
Oh my word! I didn't. You said you do want to bring that up?
I do want to bring that up. That Sarah Ricky ran a half marathon without training after having...
Let's talk about what the definition of run is here. How about I suffered through 6 miles, and then I was like, if I'm going to finish this, I've got to walk. And I finished there. So I walked the rest.
How many months after Evie was born was that half marathon? It was soon.
It was it was like the spring, and she was born in the fall, so I don't know.
It was less than 6 months, I feel like.
I think it was a little bit under 6 months, but I mean, maybe 5.
But, okay, so let's revisit, because you're all like, well, I mean, after 6 miles. Okay.
I mean, I was hobbling.
You had a baby like 5 months prior. You didn't train at all.
That's because I'm lazy.
Half marathon. I don't care if you ran the whole thing or not. I just remember being like, she is superwoman. Like,
no.
What
Oh, my word.
kind of person can physically achieve this? Like, okay, and also we need to say then that you invited people to run, because this was in honor of Evie.
Yes,
this marathon was run in honor of Evie, and everybody had t-shirts, and you invited anybody that wanted to run on Team Evie. I don't know that you called it that.
I think we kind of did, yeah.
To come run the half marathon. There were t-shirts. You had like little iron-on things that people could put on, pink t-shirts, to run in honor of Evie. And so we need to acknowledge I did not run. Did not run this half marathon. Like, you just had a baby and ran, and I did not run because I knew I would not make it anywhere close to 6 miles. I might have made it 1 before I'd be like, I need a golf cart to pick me up because this is not happening. So, I mean, I came, but I just think it's incredible that you could have a baby 5 months later, not train, don't have to walk until 6 miles in. Like, come on.
I don't know. I think that's a disservice to anyone who's an actual runner. I think they'd be like, she hobbled. She was hobbling.
I don't think so.
I crawled and cried a lot.
Yeah. I would have, done worse. Much worse. And that would have been not after having a baby, so it would have been more shameful.
I feel like I put that in the back of my mind because, I don't know. I feel like I didn't, I don't know. I didn't actually run it. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying.
But for me, I think the reason I remember that so much is because of, again, my perspective from standing as a guest at the finish line, not running with it. So I had a different view. But so me and the kids came. Oh, and John came too, I think. But I had made t-shirts for me and the kids, even though we weren't running. And my plan was to meet you at the finish line. So we came after the race had started. And I remember seeing some of your family come through, and so I knew you were coming. And so we were just up from the finish line, maybe not right at it. But I remember seeing when I could finally see you running, and you were at the end there. You were running, so you did finish running because at that time you were jogging. Be a better way to put it.
Yes.
But I just got so emotional, and I hadn't been emotional about the race or anything like that. I just thought it was a really neat thing to do. But when I saw you running and running over 13 miles, and you had your pink shirt on and all of that, I know you remember that. I was like crying at the finish line, like cheering for you, because for me that was like the most perfect visual metaphor, whatever you want to call it, for what you have been through. Like, and even just now you talking about, like, you're like, I didn't run, I crawled and cried. Well, it's like, and that's what you did through all of this with Evie. You can't run through things like that. I mean, anybody that thinks they can is wrong. I mean, no one can run their, we talk, in the Bible it talks about running your race well. Sometimes that looks like crawling and crying and stopping to walk and get an inhaler, whatever, your friend carried you for a while, or your family, whoever. And so for me, it just hit me in that moment how powerful that metaphor, like that visual was. I was like, wow, what a picture of what it means to go through stuff like that, and what it actually looks like, and what you look like and not even at the end of it, because you were still going through that grief, and you still are now. I mean, that's never ending. But when you've been through the eye of the storm, I guess, and you're kind of looking exhausted and dehydrated and sweaty, and you know what I mean? It's like, that's what it looks like to do these things, and that's how it's done, and it's done well that way,
Yeah.
So that was really special to me. You may have blocked out the half marathon, but for me, because I didn't run it, it was special for me.
That's funny. But at that same time, you were going through so many adjustments, and you were going through your own, I don't know if you want to call it a storm, but like adjusting to life with Murato, with his new autism diagnosis. And certainly that was no walk in the park.
Right.
So what was that like?
The first 6 months were the hardest, even now. I mean, we've gone through some tough things off and on since then, but the first 6 months are the hardest. And I had reached out when he was first diagnosed. I'd reached out to another mom who has an older son, older than Murato, but still like elementary school age. But so she'd been walking it for, I don't know, at least a few years at that point. I remember emailing her because how did I know her? I think we were just Facebook friends because we were adopting from the same agency maybe, and then eventually I found her blog. But anyway, I reached out to her when he was first diagnosed, and one of the things she said to me was the first year is the hardest because it's not that your child is hard necessarily, and again, every family is different, but it's that first 6 months to a year that you emotionally and mentally are getting adjusted to just wrapping your brain around this is our new life, or it is life, and now you're just aware of it that you weren't before. But it's also when you're likely starting all the interventions and therapies and starting to figure out what your child needs and how to best help them grow and get help that they may need. And so that's sort of where we were. We were in occupational therapy, speech therapy. We were seeing different doctors. We had to fight really hard to get him some of the support that the state offers so that we could afford to give him the various treatments or therapies and help he needed. And so I just felt like I spent so much time in and out of doctor's offices or on the phone with insurance companies, and it was just exhausting because it was all brand new, and you're learning a brand new language and a brand new lifestyle, and you're figuring it all out. And after the first 6 months to a year, that dust settles because you get into a routine. You figure out what works and doesn't work for your child. You just have a better grasp on how to do this new lifestyle. And so after that first year, 6 months to a year, things have since popped up that we have to deal with or manage, and that can make for a tough season. But there's a steadiness to, we know what to expect, and learning things like, oh, we can't go to this birthday party because he's going to freak out when everyone sings happy birthday. And that stuff, now we know his triggers, and here's a situation that will be really good for him, he'll have fun, or here's a situation where we need to maybe run to a different room or go out to the car. But in that first year, you're learning all that, and the only way to learn it usually is the hard way.
Right.
So it's by figuring it out by having a really bad experience. So and just learning about your child's needs. And so that's why that first 6 months to a year, I think, is so hard. It's not so much that life changes a whole lot after that, and it does a little bit. It's just that you figured out better how to do it, and how to balance all of that. So that I would say that those first, for me, I would say 6 months were definitely really tough and just really tiring. I felt like I was so emotional. I know we've said this a lot already. It was like I felt like I cried all the time. Like it was just like, and not even for any particular reason. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm crying again.
You're just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You're overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed and so tired.
Yeah.
So, and I remember thinking in the months after Evie died, hoping that I was like really I hope I'm being a good friend, because I was so afraid that months would go for you, that months would pass and everyone would forget and move on. Because I remember feeling that way with our miscarriages, that it was a really big deal to people for a few weeks or even a month maybe, to the people that were supporting us. and then everybody else moved on, and I felt like I wasn't ready to move on, but that it wasn't okay that I hadn't.
Right.
And so it was a very lonely place to be. I wanted to be sure I was there for you too, or that at least you knew I was still thinking about it and caring about how you were doing and all of that. And I felt like you too did a really good job of, in the midst of your own stuff, asking about our family, and how that was all going. And so, and sometimes I think maybe it's because we were both going through some tough things at the same time that we were more acutely aware of what the other was going through.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So.
Plus, I felt like I really feel like you were just so attentive to like my emotions, and that I felt like it was the least I could do to try to reciprocate. And you were just so good about like we got coffee often. Like John would watch the kids, which I appreciated, and so we could go to Starbucks, or sometimes we would just bring it to the church early, and the kids would play. And I don't know, it was just, I feel like we heard each other's hearts.
Yeah.
And I mean, I loved it. It was life to me, it was great.
Yeah, me too.
It was good. It was good for what it was.
Yes. It was hard and really good. Yeah. And a gift to have somebody, like to have a friend through that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And and not that we both, would have wished it on ourselves, but it was good that we were both kind of in a valley, and it wasn't like, I'm having new babies and you are, suffering through what you're suffering. Like, we were on the same level, which... Right. That was probably really good.
Yes, I think so too. It ended up, like you said, you would never pick that story, but it's so nice when you're there to have somebody who can relate and understand a little bit about where you're at emotionally and why maybe you're not your usual chipper self all the time, or it's just, and to have it be okay. Like to have a place where it's safe to be okay to not, that you're not okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay that we're not okay. Like, we don't have to fake it, or feel like you can't say, well, I'm having actually a really bad week or whatever, you know? Which I feel like sometimes I am tempted to do with friends sometimes, because I just don't want to go there, because then you have to explain so much.
Yeah.
Whereas I felt like with us, you and I never really had to explain, well, why we were having a bad week, or
we had kind of walked through it from the beginning together.
Right. And so it just made it kind of a relief to have that.
I agree. There were a lot of relationships I had at that time that I felt like I had to like protect the other person, and not that I lied, but I couldn't be, I couldn't fully disclose, I felt like, what was going on in my heart. But with you, it just felt like, and not that we were like nasty and just like, emotional vomit, like it wasn't like that.
Right.
But we could be really open and honest, and I just, that was just great. Good for me.
Yes, so, very good for me too.
At what point was it that spring that Arsema had her first surgery?
Yeah, it was early summer. So she turned 1 on May 15th, and she had surgery within a week or two of that. Because it wasn't so urgent, we waited until she was 12 months old, because, your husband knows more about it than I do, but because of all of the anesthesia stuff, it's better to wait until they're a year old. So that would have been in June, right after, or I think it was early June, late May or early June, that she had her first surgery. And then she had her next one very shortly after that, September. September 5th, because I remember sitting in the waiting room at the hospital thinking, it's funny, it was just, this day last year that we were sitting in the waiting room, or that we were sitting in the doctor's office when Maranta was diagnosed with autism. It was
Oh,
the
wow.
same day.
That's crazy.
So I was like, oh,
1
here
year
we are
later.
again.
Like, oh, great, thanks.
Same hospital, yeah.
That's funny. Well,
Yeah.
I remember, I just always felt like I wanted to just repay all the kindness and like just wonderful friendship you had given me. And I remember you and John were, I assumed you would need meals, and you were like trying to eat clean and like vegan or something. I'm like,
Yes.
like I did not know what to cook. I'm like, what do I bring them?
So funny, that's right. I forgot that was all at the same time. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
I like grilled a bunch of vegetables. I'm like, here.
No, it was
Here's
great.
food.
Chili. You made vegan chili. It was like all clean,
It was
eating
like peppers
everything.
and beans. I don't know what I was
on
doing.
this like big 9-month kick where John didn't last as long as I did. He was like, I need meat. But you made this big pot of chili and you brought some other stuff with it. And because I remember being like, Sarah, where did you get this recipe? Because it's like the best chili I'd ever had. And I'm not a big chili person either. Like, I think because it's usually all beef, and beef doesn't usually sit well in my stomach. So I remember you were so nervous about it because you told me when you gave it to me, you're like, I don't know what this is.
I know. It wasn't even a recipe. I was like, I basically made how I would make it with meat, but I just didn't use meat. Like, I substituted with beans and peppers. I don't know.
Yeah, you put a whole bunch of like beans and peppers and stuff, and it was so good. But it was really funny. You just straight up told me when you brought it, like, this might not be good at all. I don't know. And you were like, I didn't know what to do and how to make it.
I know. I should have just Pinterested. I should have just looked up something on Pinterest, but I don't know. I didn't have the patience.
So
whatever.
Fun.
That's too funny. Because that was 2013. So when did you guys know you were going to be moving? I don't remember. Because you actually ended up moving in December.
Yeah, it happened really fast.
Okay.
So that summer, there had been rumors that this job might open up at VMI, and it was a position that was going to be like really perfect for John, like kind of fitting everything he got his degrees for and everything he wanted to do.
Like his dream job.
Right. So it was kind of like we thought it could happen maybe that summer, like, but didn't know when, because the job didn't even exist. Like, it wasn't a job that was in current existence ever before. So that fall, it became clear, like, oh, they're going to establish this position. The money came through that needed to. And so we kind of just felt like we were on this constant waiting game, because it was like, they're going to create the job and post it. And of course, you have to accept applicants and all this. I want to say like in September, and then it didn't happen. And then finally it posted like at the end of October, but we were so confused like when the job was going to start. And so it was just this constant like pushback and waiting. And so when John did apply, I think the thing was there were so many applicants and the numbers were higher than anyone was expecting, that we kind of got to the point where like, we really think he could get this job, but we think there's an equally good chance that he won't get the job.
Yeah. So
we just sort of felt in limbo, because it was like, well, if he gets the job, we're moving, but if he doesn't, we're staying. So until he was actually offered the job, we had no idea if we were moving or not. And so it was a really weird place to be. Like, are we going to stay here for a while longer? Are we going to move? And and even that was up in the air when the job was going to start. So he did get the job, but he was told he got the job on December 18th. Christmas is 1 week later, and we had to move in the first week of January. And so, for us, it was like, okay, so we had 3 weeks to adjust to, okay, this is in fact happening, because we weren't sure, and then pack up our lives and go, and also leave our families and all the friends. And then for John, especially for him, leaving the ministry so quickly, I think was really hard.
And I don't know, I feel like I don't remember being sad that you left. I feel like I couldn't let myself go there.
Yeah.
Like, I remember we had, like, a sort of tearful goodbye, but we weren't, like, it was just, like, I don't know, we had to pretend it wasn't happening. I think.
I remember being like, okay, we'll see you soon.
Yes.
Which is true. I mean,
I do remember you saying that.
see you in a couple months when I'm down,
Yes.
which we've been pretty good about being able to do.
Yeah.
Like, whenever we're in town.
Plus, luckily, with the internet and texting, like, I think we knew we wouldn't be out of touch.
Right.
You know,
right.
It was definitely going to be different. Like, I wouldn't have my crying buddy anymore.
I know, and it was a really bizarre adjustment because, so we've been here 2.5 years now, which just seems crazy. Like, as we're talking, like, we've really not lived near each other for 2.5 years now. How is that possible?
It's gone by fast.
It's gone by really fast, so it's been 2.5 years, and I have made some really, really special friends over the last year. But for the first year, at least, here, I didn't really have any friends. Like, I just didn't. It was a weird. We're in a really tiny town. The kids weren't in school. John is in college ministry, and so there weren't, like, there's nobody there is married, or with wives or anything like that. So it was just, or none of the students are. And so it was just this weird phase of, like, oh gosh, I really didn't have any friends, but I was trying to just adjust to moving with the kids and all that. But I do remember feeling really lonely, and so it was like I don't have my friend right here anymore. And it was like, there's no Friday morning Bible study to go to. There's nobody to run out to coffee with, and that was kind of tough. Like, this is a bummer. Like, kind of a big bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, like, we still stayed in touch over the years. We haven't, like, we've still been, like, involved in each other's lives.
Right.
And even when we got Kate/Charlie's diagnosis.
I don't even think of them as Kate anymore. It's really funny.
I know.
I was like, Kate? Who's that? Oh, yeah.
So funny. But you were still so good, even from afar, to reach out to me and, like, still check on me with texts and everything. And after he came, you gave me a care package, and that was just so sweet. And I, like, one thing that you put in there was chocolate, and, like, for everything you wrote, like, a little, note. Like, I put in tissues, to dry your tears, and I put in tea to help with your sore throat. Right. And you put chocolate, and then you wrote, because chocolate. I'm like, yes, that was...
because stuff.
Yeah, because chocolate. So, yeah.
I know. I remember just feeling, because after Evie, you had Jossie.
Yeah.
And so it really felt like, okay, that was it. Like, that was, now that was going to be the hard thing. So when, naturally so, I think with every pregnancy there are those nerves after Evie. Like you had said, and we both said it to each other and in various places, that once you lose a child, pregnancy is never the same.
Right.
Subsequent pregnancies it's never the same feeling, because there's always that fear of what if again. So when you got pregnant with Charlie and Jossie as well, and you felt that way, I totally got those feelings. But at the same time, I was like, because because of Jossie, I was like, well, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And there was no indication really that it wouldn't. But I was picking up Morato from preschool, and I was in the line waiting for him to come out when you texted. And all your text said was, because I knew you had your ultrasound that morning for Charlie. Kate, as
yeah,
as
we thought it was. He, she was.
Not a girl, was a he. But you said, all your text said was, it's happening again. And that was it. And I obviously knew exactly what that meant. And I just lost it in the car. Like, poor Morato got in the car, and I'm just
I'm sorry.
the whole way home. Like, sorry, bad moms. But it was also good because he asked what was wrong, and I was able to be honest. Like, my friend is hurting right now, and that makes me really sad, and that's something that he can understand because he's such a sensitive boy. Like, oh yeah, I get really sad too when my friend is sad, and so he was just really sweet about it. But yeah, I just couldn't believe that it would happen again. I mean, that was for me more shocking than Evie's diagnosis, I think, because with Evie, I knew it was shocking and it was heartbreaking, but I already knew things like that happened, And so, to me, in my perspective, even before we found out about Evie, it was always amazing to me how many people just got pregnant and didn't lose babies. That's always been something for me. I'm like, all these people that can effortlessly have these families, it's just such an amazing thing to me. So it wasn't so out of the realm of my
understanding
how things can go. But with Charlie, that was shocking because I was like, but it should never happen again. Like, for me, that was really hard. And coupled with not being there, like, it was really hard for me that I didn't live near you anymore. Because with Evie, I felt like I could be there. I could show up on your porch, or I could take you out for coffee, or bring something by, or, do whatever, or be there at the hospital, or sit with you at Bible study. But with Charlie, it was like I felt so helpless. Like, I can't do anything other than really text, and I could come down some, but not, it just wasn't realistic for me to be able to drive down very often. And that was really hard because, and I do remember saying that to John that day, because he came home from work and we were talking, and I was just so upset. I'm just so mad I don't live there right now. Like, this is really hard not to be right there. Like, and what do you do? Like, how? And so figuring that out for me from a distance, how to be your friend in that in a way that I felt was good enough, was really hard because I didn't know, like, is a text enough today? Like, what does she need and how? Because when you're present and you're there, I could see you throughout the week and see, oh, I think Sarah needs this right now, or I think it would be best if, we had coffee, or if I just let her be for a little bit. And when you can't see, you're not just there day to day, it's really tough to know how to be a good friend. And
but I still think you did great.
Oh,
you're still so supportive, and I knew you were praying for me, and I knew you were thinking about me, and I knew I wasn't alone, So.
Yeah. And it was also really hard for me not to be there when Charlie was born, because I was when Evie was. That was such a battle, and honestly, for a long time after, I know we talked about it a little bit too, I battled with a lot of guilt because you had him at night or early morning, and I didn't get the text until I was getting the kids ready for school, but he was already born and had already passed. And because our plan had been, when you went into labor, you're going to text me, and I was just going to pack up and go. And John knew, as we were getting closer, like, any time now, Lauren's just going to go. And he would have the kids, and he would just do what he needed to do on his end. And so, for me, I didn't wake up when you texted in the middle of the night, and then I got your text, but it was well after Charlie had been born and passed, within a couple hours, not like well after, but within a couple hours. And I just remember feeling so devastated that I had missed it. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll drop the kids off at school, come home and pack my suitcase. But then my thought process was, with Evie, you left the hospital really fast after, because, well, it was also like the wee hours in the morning, but like by noon, we were home. Going back home. So I thought, by the time I actually get down there, she's going to be home. I'm not going to get to see or meet Charlie like I did with Evie. And so I thought maybe the best thing is to let you have that, go home, rest, sleep, and I think I already had plans to come down a couple weeks later or something like that, and a couple weekends later. So I was like, maybe the best thing would be for us to, and I knew people would be in and out of your house. So I think maybe what's best is for me to come down in a couple weeks and us to really get that one-on-one time together, rather than me just being part of the revolving door when you're so tired after just delivering, and then this is also fresh. And you were fine with all of that. You were so great when, I said, would this be better and whatnot. But then I remember, I think it was a blog post that you were writing about, you're just sharing his story, like his delivery and all that. And I put the time together and realized you had kept him with you for so long that if I had dropped the kids off at school and packed my suitcase and just driven to the hospital, I would have gotten to see him. And I would have, and I was like, I was just filled with so much regret. Like, why didn't I just get in the car? And I remember I texted you that, like, I felt so awful and that I wish I had just done it, because I really wanted to just be able to see him and hold him. And you were so sweet. You were like, you obviously didn't think anything of that.
No.
But for me as a friend, that was so hard. I was like, why did I not just go? Like, how could I missed it. I could have, you always think all the what ifs, like, what if I just gotten in the car, then I could have met him, and having to let go of that and go, well, for whatever reason, this is the way, the timing of everything and how it all went, and that was okay. But the distance with Charlie was really tough for me, and just feeling like I wasn't able to be there for you and be with you in the same way that I was with Evie.
But you were still there for sure. And I mean, I just, like I said, I knew you were supporting me from afar, which still meant a lot, to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to title this podcast For Such a Time as This, because I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like God put each of us in each other's lives for just these times to support one another. And I feel like the heart lessons that I've learned from you are just huge and many. And so I think the biggest thing that you taught me is the importance of just being there for somebody. And I never felt like I felt like you here this is what I should say. I feel like you always validated where I was emotionally, and that you never you never tried to explain what I was feeling away. You never tried to like put a band-aid over everything or change the subject. You were like right there with me, validating what I felt, and that was just meant so much. And so I've tried to reciprocate that. I've tried to do that with other people, and it's just huge. Just like feeling validated as a person when you're walking through something difficult. It's just really huge. So thank you very much for that invaluable lesson.
Well, and with you, I feel like for me that experience, especially with Evie, and then again with Charlie, of course, but in that first with Evie, I felt like what I learned through that was that it was it's sort of the same lesson but flipped. Like, it's okay to just be there. Like, you can be there for somebody and love somebody without having all the answers. And because I felt like that's what you did for me, and that was all I could do for you. And because neither of us had the answers or the way to fix it, and so just to be there and for that to be okay, and just learning that was in hard things, not just an okay way to do friendship, like it's fine, but like really helpful. Like, a really helpful way to be a friend, and that was so good for me, because like you just said, I've been able to turn that around and implement that in other friendships and relationships. Like, oh, it's okay to just be here. Like that can be enough. And
yeah,
so.
And just pass the Starbucks.
Yes, and the chocolate, and the towel.
And the towel. Yes. Well, I'm so excited for your new writing venture. I know it's not new that you've been writing, but it's new that you're, publishing. And I think I say it every time we message one another, but I really am so excited for you. And I think God is going to do such big things with your story. And I think you have the ability to, I think so many people can relate to you, because you've gone through you've just gone through so much.
A wide range,
yes. Yes, your suffering resume is really impressive. Yeah. And I know you wouldn't have picked it, and I'm sure at times, maybe you wish it wasn't your story, but I appreciate that you're letting God use it, and I think He's just going to bless it, and I can't wait for next spring to see, to hold the book, and then I guess a year later when your other one will come out. I don't know, is that?
I guess so, a year or so, which seems so bizarre to think about, but yeah.
So I'm excited for that. And in the meantime, if somebody is interested in finding out more about you and your story, where can we find you?
The best way is my website, which is really easy. It's www.laurencasper.com. And then from there, it's really easy to find all my social media links. But I'm on, the main one is Facebook. My Facebook page, I post all the links from my blog and anything else on there. And I am on Twitter. I don't really understand.
I'm the same way.
Find me on Twitter. I don't know how great that will be for you, but it's just, I think a lot of people love Twitter, but I'm like, I just can't keep up.
What stresses me out is the word limit. I start typing and then the numbers start turning red, in the negative, and I'm like, oh no. Makes my heart palpitate. I just have to be done.
You have to sit there and think of a shorter, more creative way to say what you want to say, and it's like, who has time for this?
Yeah, and then you turn into a caveman. You're just blog post up, you're just in the link. That's not even helpful.
No, I don't have time for this. I'll just hop over to Facebook and say what I want to say. No one's going to cut me off at a certain number of characters. Yes, I totally agree. And it's just another thing. It's another thing to keep up with, and I just can't. So I have a Twitter, but really not a lot's happening over there for me. And then on my Instagram, which again you can find from my website, the link to that, but it's lcasper1, the number 1. It's mostly just pictures of my kids, so there's nothing profound happening.
But they're super cute, so you should check it out.
A lot of cuteness.
Yes, a lot of cuteness.
If you want to have cuteness in your life, that's where to go. But I think I looked through one day and I was like, wow, there's 10 photos total. I mean, I don't know really, but of me on here, and 4,000 of my kids. No one would know who I was just based off my Instagram or what my face looked like. But yeah, and so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you want to be bored with my page,
don't say
that. but mainly my website has all this stuff on there. Yeah.
Well, thanks for chatting with me tonight. Thanks for sharing your story and for intertwining your story with mine. And thank you for being such a good friend to me. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And now we're just gonna go to sleep because it's way too late.
That's right.
It took me way too long to get this thing together, and now we're just going to bed. So. Thank you, Lauren. This has been great.
Thanks, Sarah.
I hope you enjoyed listening to my conversation with Lauren, but honestly, even if you didn't, it was so fun for me to chat with my friend and catch up with her sort of pseudo face-to-face. We often Facebook message and text a lot, so this face-to-face time was a little bit of a treat. So what Lauren taught me, the most important thing that Lauren taught me about being a friend was just the importance of validating the feelings of someone else. And, what she never said to me, oh, you shouldn't be feeling that way, or let's try to fix it, or are you still going through that? She never said anything like that. She just validated what I was feeling and just allowed me to be where I needed to be. And I appreciated that so much. And then what Lauren learned through our friendship is that silence is okay. It's okay to just kind of sit with somebody and be there. And I know so frequently in our little coffee dates that we would have, one of us would share something, kind of heavy that was on our heart. And we would look at each other and one of us would say, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say. And the other would like shrug and same thing, like, I don't know either. And then we would just sort of sip on our coffee and we would just kind of be there. Like, I don't know. We didn't know. We didn't know how to make sense of what was going on in our lives, but that was okay. And we were okay to be there together. And I think the fact that we were there together was a blessing and really just helped us to feel much less isolated in what we were going through. So I know I've said it so much already, but Lauren really is wonderful, and you should totally go check her out. Go read more of her story and go see the pictures of her cute kiddos. So laurencasper.com is where you can find her blog and all of her social media links. And you should definitely do that because next year she's coming out with her first book, and you will want to be familiar with her story before the book comes out so you can be as super excited for the book as I am. So... And don't forget to connect with me this week. You may have noticed that I changed my podcast cover artwork, and I'm really loving it. So if you love it too, maybe just let me know. Shoot me an email, write me a little message on Facebook, and let me know what you think of my cute new little logo. I think it looks a little bit more modern or updated or something. I don't know. I like it. I like it a lot. And I'm working on changing it in all my different little places, so maybe just be patient with me if you still see the old one. Thanks again for listening. I really appreciate you, and I'm so glad that you tune into Heart Lessons each week. And as always, I hope that you are able to come away with your own heart lesson to help you draw closer to the Lord.